Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Glen Hawke, and it is great to bring you part two of my catch up with Rachel BALKOVEC, the hitting coach of the Sydney Blue Sox. Now, if you caught part one of this episode, no doubt you'll be blown away by her story. It is truly incredible. But let me tell you, there's a lot more to come. Here it is right now, part two of my catch up with Rachel BALKOVEC. I'm not done yet. I want to talk to you about the study and the work that you do with Driveline. In my years, I played baseball all my life, and I was always brought up that baseball was a really simple game. You know, you throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball.
Yeah.
Hitting, see ball, hit ball is a lot about what a lot of people have been taught. But this whole eye tracking research and development that you have done and that's being done through Driveline. This is a real game changer for the sport. Tell us a little bit about what the research is being done and how this is helping hitters now.
So eye tracking, basically, it's so intuitive, right? In baseball, we're like, it's crazy how when I heard about this, and I never even thought about it, I thought, how have I never thought about this? This is a whole science. It's basically how you perceive something and then make contact with it, which we do this every single day of our lives. When you're driving in a car, you're predicting, right? You when can I make the turn? I'm going to kind of predict, okay, the car's moving this fast. I know it's coming this fast. Okay, I'm going to turn after the car. We do this in every facet of our lives where there's a moving object. We're tracking it, and we have this internal, basically, calculator that tells us where something's going to be and when. And that applies in baseball as well. And I never even thought about it. Dylan opened my eyes to this, and I just was blown away. I thought, how in the world did I play college softball at the Division I level and never even think about this? We're so hyper focused on the body right now and mechanics. And to me, realistically, that's only 20% of what goes on, because you could think how many people have wonderful swings and can't hit a curveball, so it's like you could have the best swing in the world, but if you cannot adjust to a breaking ball, you're screwed anyway. So that's basically what the science of eye tracking is understanding how we perceive objects that are moving and how we then time it up to make contact and know exactly where it's going to be, because the ball is moving too fast for us to actually go, oh, that's a curveball. Oh, okay, it's going to go there. We don't do that. It's basically a reaction, and learning how to train all of that. So that's what eye tracking really is about. And again, like, I hadn't even thought about it until I met Dylan. I just felt dumb for not even going, oh, of course that's important. So that was the research at Driveline, and it's very rare. It's very, very rare research. It hasn't been done a lot in baseball. It's been done mostly in cricket and other areas of sport. And so it was not only new research, like in general, it was very new to baseball, extremely unique to baseball in the way that I was able to do it at Driveline. Forever grateful for them for giving me the opportunity to do the research there. But Driveline in general has really pushed the game, because the owner of Driveline, Kyle Bodie, is just an absolute renegade in the game. And he worked in professional baseball for just a couple of years early in his career, and then basically was like, screw this. This isn't good. No one's listening to me. I'm just going to go start my own thing. And it's come full circle to where 10 years later, he was hired by the Cincinnati Reds as the director of pitching, because he did actually create a player development facility that has exceeded literally Major League Baseball organizations, which is incredible. So he brought in biomechanics labs, force plates, hit tracks, blast motion, Rapsodo, Edgertronic. If you don't know what I'm saying, that's totally fine. But he just basically brought in a model that was all based around objective data going into player development, so that the players know exactly what they need to get better at. They know exactly if they're getting better or worse, so they can stop if they there's nothing wrong with experimentation. So if they are going down a path and it's not leading them the right way, they don't go too far down that path. They go to something else. And so it's just phenomenal what they've been able to do there. And I just, yet again in my career, like, so thankful that I had an opportunity to pass through there for 6 months. And there's just an incredible culture, incredible people. I mean, really, like, that was phenomenal. And it really led to helping me get a job with the Yankees.
Yeah, so this has given you an edge, a real extra edge that other hitting coaches, and I suppose you look at hitting coaches traditionally in big league organizations, they go from being very good baseball hitters, having a very good career as hitters, and it becomes an automatic transition into, for a lot of these people, into a good hitter becomes a good hitting coach. And we know that's not always the case in coaching. Good players don't always equal good coaches. You're breaking this mold here, and you're learning, you're teaching, your research is making you and giving you that edge to make you a better hitting coach.
Yeah, and look, like there's a lot of value to having experience playing.
Absolutely.
And I don't have that. I played college softball, but I never played professional baseball. But what we're seeing here is it's a window of time in professional baseball where you're seeing a transition from, it used to be just all ex players, all of them, you know, then technology came on the scene. And if you don't want to use technology now, you're not going to have a job in 5 years or less. There are coaches right now that are losing their jobs because they're resistant to using objective data to do their coaching. They're still of the mindset of, oh, well, I don't need that type of thing. And it's just the way the world is changing. So now we're having like a lack basically of ex players that are willing to adjust and learn a whole new way of thinking of player development. So that's creating opportunities for people like me, but not just me. Like even Dylan, my boss, he's the director of hitting for the New York Yankees, and he never played professional baseball. He played at a low level. I played higher level softball than he played baseball. So I think that it's just creating opportunities. Now, this window, by the way, is going to close because right now what we're seeing is interesting. Now the players, the current professional baseball players, especially at the minor league level, they're all getting introduced to this data and technology during their playing career. So they're going to come out of their playing careers with experience already. It's normal to them. They're like, yeah, I'm going to look for numbers. I'm going to look for objective data to tell me if I'm doing good or bad. I'm not going to ask your opinion based off of whatever you think. It's like, no, it's right here. I was throwing 90 miles an hour. Now I'm throwing you 95 miles an hour. That's objective. It's not what you think or don't think. So I think that we're going to see a crop of players in the next 5 years that are going to be coming done with their careers and ready to coach. And this window of time for opportunities for people like me who have a very different background, that's going to be gone. It's going to be, again, in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be all ex-players again. But now they're going to have all of this extra knowledge of technology and objective data.
It's really interesting that, as you say, the data that you've got there and the information. Traditionally, you could get a hitter and you can get 3 different hitting coaches to sit there and look and analyze based on their knowledge and experience in the game. And those 3 hitting coaches could give 3 very different opinions on what this hitter was like based on what they knew and what their experience was as a hitter, and they're kind of even a hunch really. But now with the data involved, it's a case of this is what's happening. This is why you're doing this. And here's the numbers behind it. And then when it goes, I suppose, to that next step to review, you can then not just go back to that hunch again, but you go back, here are the numbers. And this is how you've changed. This is how you tracked. And this is how you've improved.
Yeah.
I suppose that learning process for the players, it's been a big thing for the coaches and yourself and other coaches who are doing it. What's the experience been like for the hitters who have been exposed to this sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because there is still, you missed a step of like, wait, no, we know your evaluation here, your evaluation here. There's still this middle point of, okay, now how do we get you from point A to point B? That's still, can be left up to every coach is going to have a different answer for how they get from point A to point B. It's just helped us to evaluate players much more efficiently. For the players, it just depends. Like I said, there's this young group of players that are, by the way, colleges have this now. Some high schools have this now. There are 10-year-olds that go to private hitting facilities and they've got all the technology that major league teams have. So it is reaching deep into like the youth baseball in America, and they're coming to us with they already have this stuff. So they're coming to pro ball expecting us to have this data, expecting us to have this knowledge. So the youngest players are like, yeah, duh. Like, what would we do without this? What do you mean you don't? Why aren't we using this technology? They're coming to us with expectations of having that information, and so the youngest players are super receptive to it. In fact, they don't even know a different way of coaching. They don't know a different way of evaluating themselves. So they are super used to it. There are major league players that are old enough to where they made it to the big leagues right now without any of that. So they're like, whoa, it's too much information. I don't need that. I don't want that or whatever. So there's still, we're in this crazy transition time in the sport where the highest level, there's some resistance there, but those players are retiring, and there are already players that are coming up to the big leagues that have used that in the minor leagues. So it's moving out. And so as soon as like I said, in the next 5 to 10 years, there's not going to be a player in the big leagues that doesn't want technology. I'm telling you this. It's inevitable. It's coming. So the players and coaches that are resistant to it, it's like adapt or die kind of situation. And I think, again, that's just opened up opportunities for people like me that don't have the playing experience to come in, because the Yankees are like, yeah, well, we don't care if you played. Can you turn on a computer? Because if you can't work for us. It's just not a thing.
Which takes us to the New York Yankees. As you said, it was almost 12 months ago to the day that you got appointed as the hitting coach for the New York Yankees. Probably the most, I suppose, famous, most recognized sporting franchise in the world. If it's not the top, it's in the grand final. Tell us about that moment, about when you became a Yankee.
Oh yeah. Well, Dylan was the one that offered me the job, so it was extra special that we were able to have conversations behind the scenes that I wouldn't have been able to have if I didn't know him so well already, from knowing him from the Astros and just knowing his family. So when he called to offer me the job, he was like, hey, you got it, because I interviewed with many people, not just him. So it was not his decision. It was, he wanted me to work there and he had to convince everybody else. So I interviewed with probably 10 other people all in all, and he was like, you got the job. We want you to come on staff. And I was like, I accepted it, and we were able to say, like, I love you. It was a very special moment because it was somebody who had already been a mentor to me. And just overwhelmingly grateful, just thinking about all of the people that had to be involved, not just in this decision, but again, going back all the way through my career and saying how many people gave me opportunities, and the things that I won't know for another decade or two are the conversations behind the scenes when they had to fight for me and say, no, this is the right person, even if she is a woman. So the incredible amounts of things that had to line up and people that had to agree. I mean, it's not just like, oh yeah, we're hiring a woman. No, you got to ask the GM, you got to ask the owner, you got to ask a lot of people, a lot more people than when you're just hiring a man for a normal job. So a lot of people had to agree to it. A lot of people behind the scenes that I don't even know had to sign off on that. Probably some players were involved in just saying, yep, I'm okay with that. So I think that just overwhelming bit of gratitude for all the people that have supported me within my career, but also just thinking about women and going, for me to get this opportunity today, decades and decades and decades of women before me have had to fight for other opportunities. And I go back to like Billie Jean King, and I'm not sure how familiar everyone is in Australia with her, but American tennis player. I mean, tennis is global, so of course, but Billie Jean King, that was in the 70s, and I listened to interviews of her in the 70s now, and I'm talking about the same things that she was talking about 50 years ago. So just knowing the opportunities that I had as a woman to play sports, which opened up the doors for me to coach, and knowing how far back that reaches and how many generations of women have had to fight for those opportunities. My own mother, growing up in a small farm town, if she wanted to play sports, she couldn't have. She didn't have those opportunities. And so to think that her own daughter is now not only had a chance to play sports at a high level, but is now coaching men at a professional, it's just the overwhelming sense of gratitude and knowing that it's not just me. I had to put in the work, but I just feel so thankful for so many other people that had to come together to make this happen.
It says a lot about the New York Yankees as an organization to make this appointment.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You must be terribly grateful for everything they've given you.
Yeah. Like I said, so many people that had to be involved in the Yankees organization. And incredibly thankful.
I was going to ask you if you, at this point in your career and your life, even looking back on what you've done so far, do you understand and appreciate what you've done, not just for yourself, but as you mentioned, all those women who came before you, not just in baseball, but many walks of life who got that knockback. And I have no doubt there've been many women who have got to all those points where you got to on your journey and went, yeah, you know what, this is just not my path.
Yeah.
This is not for me. Do you understand? I suppose I know you do, but I'll ask the question anyway. Do you understand and appreciate it and realize the enormity of it?
No, I think I understand, but the thing is, I can't possibly. I'm going to have to look back on this in 10 years.
Well, you're still living it at the moment, aren't you? And And you've
I'm
got a
in
lot.
it. Like I'm in a way where people don't really probably realize this, but I'm in a bit of survival mode. It's like I'm gonna go and coach for the Blue Sox, and Manny Ramirez is on the team. Like, what is that? Thankfully he's phenomenal. We've been talking quite a bit, and he's just such a nice, genuine person, thankfully. But it's like I went from, oh, I'm hired by the Yankees and I'm working with our young Latin players, to like all of a sudden I'm working with a 12-time All-Star. Like, oh God, I'm a bit in survival mode. I'm learning. So I can't possibly pull myself out of this and look at it. However, I try to be mindful. And frankly, like, this is my 8th year in professional baseball. So in some ways, I've already had a lot of time to reflect on these things and why I'm here, and what all went into it, and just to think about these things. And so I think I'm more prepared to understand the gravity of it than maybe other people, other women that are hired into these jobs, because I've had so much time to think about it. I've been in the game for 8 years, but realistically, no, I don't know, because I'm living in it, and I show up to spring training and there's cameras everywhere, and fans are asking for my autograph and not the players, and I'm like, like I can't possibly understand all of this in the moment. I just have to like take every day, and in 10 years I'll look back and go, oh, that was really cool. But I don't know, I'm in it right now, so it's really hard to say for sure. What I do try to be mindful of is, I try to be mindful of taking as many podcasts as I can, answering as many emails and direct messages as I can from young women, from dads, from people that it's affected and that feel called enough to reach out to me and say, hey, thank you. I really try to be mindful of responding to those people, because you never know who you're going to affect. And I know that I had, again, mentors and people growing up that impacted me greatly, just from knowing that they were alive, let alone being able to send an email and get a response from someone. So I just try to be mindful of, like, even though I might not think this is as big of a deal, to other people it might be. And so I have to be respectful of how they might feel that it's impacted them. So yeah, I try to be as mindful as possible. And I think, again, like I said, because I've been in it for so long, because I was discriminated against, because I've had all these experiences, I probably have a better grasp than maybe some other women that are being hired into positions right now, just because I've thought about it for so long, you know?
We said in 2014 that when you got the full-time gig with the Cardinals, that was a groundbreaking moment in sport. And at that time, that barely registered a blip on the radar. No one knew about it. The Cardinals didn't make a splash about it. You just pointed to the role. 12 months ago, you
Yeah.
get appointed to the Yankees. This is making, you're featuring in the New York Times, you're featuring on ESPN. This is making global news about this woman who's going to be wearing pinstripes next year. It's incredible where we've come, where the sport's come, and I suppose it's bigger than where sports come. It's where we've come as a society in those
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah. It's interesting to reflect back and go, again, and I didn't at the time, I didn't think there should have been any press, because the world has changed. I didn't even have an Instagram in 2014. Now female athletes have these Instagram with hundreds of thousands of followers, a million followers, and you're like, whoa, the world has changed, because television used to be the only way that you could watch certain sports, and especially women's sports. Now social media, there's everything everywhere, and people have their own brands and their own things that you can follow along. I couldn't even watch a lot of women's sports when I was growing up. So I think that the world has changed, like you said, and that's impacting every industry, not just sports, not just baseball, but that's impacting just about everything. So I'm fortunate to be alive during a time when it allows for it. But what's funny, again, like you mentioned, in 2014, I got hired, and it was like literally no cover. The biggest thing that you can even probably find this, it's online somewhere, but MLB did a feature on me, and they flew in a crew. A woman interviewed me, Lindsay Berra, who's actually the one who got to write the New York Times article about me, which is really cool. She covered me 2 times when I was hired in a historic role. And it was some like 10-minute clip on their website. And it didn't even, it's like it never happened. And now 6 years later, by the way, and that role was it was a director role. I was overseeing a staff and all these athletes, and I was flying all over the country, and it was a huge role. And now I'm hired as a minor league hitting coach with way, way less responsibility, by the way. And now it's this big deal, and that's not me. That's the world. That's the world changing and celebrating and looking at women's sports and women in sport in a very different way.
You look back now at that time, at those hurdles you faced, those knockbacks you got, and that time you were told directly that you didn't get this job because you were a woman. Do you look back on that now and think maybe I should, like, do you question the path that you took just in the terms of maybe I should have taken these people on, or could I have taken this somewhere because I was set back? Do you hold anything in regard to those times? Do you think you should have done it any different?
No.
Would you like to have done it any different?
No, I would have never, I knew at the time, thankfully, I had enough like sense to know that if I sued them, I wouldn't be on this interview. We wouldn't be talking right now because I wouldn't have a job. So I had to take my lumps for my own sake and also for the sake of others to just get in the door. And then, now I even look back and I go, I don't hold any resentment to those people anyway. It was the time. There were no women. They just wasn't a thing, and nobody knew what it was going to be like to have women around. So I knew that I had to show them what it was like, and if the only way for me to show them is to get there. And if I sue them or make a big scene, I would never have a job. So I still do that to a certain degree, where there are still things that go on, and it's like I just got to keep going. And frankly, all of the positives from all of my mentors and supporters in the game, and I'm talking about those brothers and uncles and dads that I have, that has greatly outweighed any kind of negativity that's come my way from anyone. Even being discriminated against, it's greatly outweighed those relationships and that support that I felt. I'm so glad that I haven't done that. And I talk to my family, and I have people that I talk to about it, my family and my close friends, and they support me through tough situations that come up. But I just try to have empathy also towards people, where if somebody says something inappropriate or they say even intentionally hurtful to me, I just go, oh, I'm so sad, so sad for you. You must not have had a strong mom at home that taught you about what, you must not have had that. Oh, I feel so sorry for you. I really, in the moment, can go, oh, that's cute. I'm so sorry. Oh, bummer for you. I really in the moment now can just have total empathy and compassion for those people who just don't get it, and that's fine. And sometimes a weird conversation will come up or whatever, and I just go in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I'll come back tomorrow. We'll try this again. I'll say good morning to you. You'll be more respectful to me. In my head, I'm like, oh boy, well, I'm going to have to work a little harder to get this guy's respect. And that's fine, because I'm willing to do that, because I know if I have to earn it and scratch and crawl my way to earn respect, it's going to be so much more. It's going to mean a lot more to that person and to me. And I know I'm going to earn their respect. It's just going to take time. So if I don't get it on day one, okay, fine. I'd rather have to earn it than for someone to hand it to me. And that goes for everything, right? I'd rather have to earn my job through the connections and the work that I put in professional baseball than for me to apply for a diversity internship, which is fine, but I just am glad that this has been my path. I'm glad that it's been hard, because it just means so much more now. And I'll continue to view it in that way. And I always tell women, they ask me, what's one piece of advice? I'm like, well, it's not going to be fair. And that's good. Being the underdog is an advantage, because you're going to have to work so much harder. And by the time you do make it, you're going to be so much more prepared than all of your peers, because you've had to do all of this. You've had to do this the whole way, and you're going to be so much more prepared. So I don't ever look back on my path and want anything else. I'm glad it was difficult. I'm glad it was challenging. I'm glad it was lonely at times, and I wouldn't trade any of it, honestly.
As I said from earlier on in this podcast, that every step we take in life, be it good ones, bad ones, or what have you, bring us to this moment where we sit right now. And you wouldn't have had what you had, nor the opportunities that are in front of you now, without the shitty stuff that you've had to deal with. And no doubt, it's made you better at what you do and a more tougher, more resilient, a more stronger person.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Righto. So you're coming to Sydney soon. It's happening.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pumped. I finally just heard I got my visa officially, have a flight. So if it's not canceled for some reason, it's next Friday. So I'm super excited. This is like such a godsend. It's in a year where everything was canceled for us, and I was supposed to get this first year of experience. I missed out on that. I felt this whole time, I'm like, gosh, all the other hitting coaches on staff have 10 years of hitting coach experience. I'm basically a first year person. Like, I can't afford to miss out on opportunities to learn and grow. And so when I heard it was just serendipitous how it happened. I was on a catching Zoom call for the Yankees, just like I always do. Like I said earlier, I'm in other departments. I'm learning. I'm trying to gather information. And I was on the Zoom call, and Jason Phillips, a guy who's played in Australia for quite a long time and knew Shane very well, said something about, yeah, we want guys going over to play winter ball in Australia because I've got a friend over there, really close friend, who's a manager. So if anyone knows of any catchers that want to go, and I just, my antenna were like, what? I was like, wait, oh my gosh, I knew about the ABL, but I just hadn't even thought to myself I could go coach over there. And I was like, I have to go. I was like, God, I have to get over there. So immediately was connected to Shane. Shane and I hit it off. He's such just a charming guy, isn't he? He's just so great. So yeah, we immediately hit it off, and I'm just so glad it's worked out through COVID, through everything. Adam has been phenomenal. Really cool that Manny's going to be over there. Great opportunity for all of us to learn. So it's just a phenomenal opportunity for me to go over there and get coaching experience, and also really cool time for the league because everyone missed out on opportunities to play. So a lot of good players from the States are coming over. It's going to be a really exciting, I think, game to watch this year.
Yeah, a link with the New York Mets this year, and there's already signed, I think, half a dozen just quality prospects that are coming to link with the Blue Sox this year. So they're starting to assemble a really quality roster. So you're coming to Sydney, you'll be the hitting coach there. Tell me, what is it that you want to get out of this season? And also, what's the kind of legacy that you want to leave with the Sydney Blue Sox this year with the players and the ball club?
I mean, like I said, I just am there. I think that there's some kind of, we were on a call with the coaches the other day, and everyone kind of went around and it was like, oh, Rachel, we're so excited to learn from you. And I said, guys, you need to lower your expectations because I'm here to learn from you. So I think it's just really learning and getting coaching experience. Obviously, I've been coaching for 10 years. I've been in the game for 8, but this is a new lens, right? And I have to think about things I haven't thought about since I played college softball, which first and third situations, and what do I do here, and what pitch should I expect? All these things that I have to just kind of like shift my mindset. So I'm like, guys, I'm going to learn a lot from the staff there. It's going to be a phenomenal learning experience for me. And furthermore, just, I know that I've talked to Adam about this, is just being able to also, run camps as for young women to come, also young men, but just to run camps and be involved in the community as much as I can. I know it's going to be a short period of time, and COVID is putting a damper on some things, but I think, again, I'm aware that I can have an impact. And so having an impact and being able to, even if it's just to reach out to a handful of young women in the community in Sydney and Australia, that'll be a phenomenal opportunity for me to do that as well for the community. So I'm couldn't be more excited. I'm ready to get going.
You mentioned Manny Ramirez, and if he's not on your flight, he won't be far behind you next Friday as well. You've already had some dealings with him. Adam said that you guys have connected, and Manny Ramirez wanted you to check out his swing.
Yeah. Oh, he's so great. But when you really speak to a high performing human, a really and truly high performing human, that's how they are. He wants to keep learning. And we've had several conversations since then. And it's not just that. He's just a very curious individual. He's about growth. He just is. I've been nothing but impressed with him as a person, just communicating with him. He's been so kind. And again, it's like, he wants me to look at his swing. I mean, why? It's Manny Ramirez. He should be telling me about his swing. And he just isn't. He's like, cool. Even if I can get a little bit of information from you, I want it. And maybe I won't take that exact thing, but maybe it'll make me think about something differently. And I might play it in a different way. So it's not that he's going, Rachel, I want you to teach me everything you know. He just wants my perspective. And that's what, again, elite level performers across the board, anyone you meet who's performing at a high level, they're going to want all of the information, and they're going to apply it in their own way, even if they know more than you technically. And so that's what I've just seen from Manny so far, is he just wants to learn. And he also is really excited. He's like, it's going to be a blast. Think about the opportunity that we have in a year where there is no baseball. Think about the opportunity that we have to be going over there. And that's the perspective that he's taking as well. It's pretty cool.
I spoke to a couple of the guys on an earlier episode of the of this podcast, and they had a Zoom call with Manny a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Manny, he said to him at the end of it, and obviously these guys, they were very starry-eyed young men who, some of them said they took time off school to watch him play in World Series and things like that. But this guy was a hero. And he stopped and said to them, guys, you have to stop treating me like this. I'm coming here to be your teammate. We're going to be wearing the same uniform. I'm just one of the guys in the team. My immediate thought was, if someone was going to give these young guys big league treatment, a guy who's been a 12-time All-Star has every reason to do that. But that was the furthest from his mind. And he's obviously a quality human being.
Again, if you are truly, he's the elite of the elite of the elite. And again, I haven't come across too many of those people because there just aren't that many, because there aren't that many that reach that level of success. His ego, he's like, I don't need to be egotistical. I know what I did. That's irrelevant. I've chose to come here, so you don't need to treat me like I'm a like I just want to learn. So treat me like I have ability to learn. Because if you treat me like an all-star, I'm not going to get better. I'm not going to learn the way that I want to. Treat me like I don't know anything. And he doesn't expect that. So I think, again, that's a trait of every extremely high level performer, is you're constantly asking questions or seeking information, and there's not a situation where you can't learn. And so that's just him. But he's just at that upper echelon, and he doesn't want to be treated that way, because again, if we treat him that way, then he won't get what he wants out of the experience, which is just to learn and grow and enjoy his time continually chasing that carrot of being a good ball player.
It's getting very exciting in Australia. Speaking to Adam and to Shane and the players, they're really pumped about what is ahead in this season, despite everything that's happening with COVID. We're still going to have a league. We're still going to have a great competition. And no doubt, as we can see here, you're really excited yourself about being part of this season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like I said, I can't wait to get down there. I'm hoping everything lines up well and I'm able to get on that flight, but until I get on that plane, I'm not going to get too excited. But yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to have this opportunity. And I think it's just going to be great baseball to watch.
Now, Rachel, you mentioned about your social media and how these platforms allow people like yourself to, I suppose, express themselves and to put out a positive messaging and to other like-minded individuals. Tell me about I'm Not Done Yet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's just what it says. It was a reminder when I started it. It's to myself. It's a mantra of continual growth. It's a mantra of continual ability to change and pivot. And if I fail here, fine, I can go somewhere else. If I fail in this endeavor, I can live on. There's something more for me. So it's just a mantra of continually going up. And it's, in this particular case, in this situation, it's funny because I was hired as a hitting coach, and everyone's like, you've made it, you've this and that. And I'm like, I just started. Like, I gotta like not even close to making it. This is like, again, I said earlier, it's like, this is like step 2, when really everyone thinks it's like the end, So I've really had the feeling of people throwing me a graduation party when I'm just a sophomore. I'm like, this is phase 2. I've got my junior year and my senior year. You haven't even seen me yet. So it's a reminder to myself and the world, or whoever. It doesn't really matter. It's just, again, it's a mantra that I have for myself that, okay, what's next? I did this, but what's next? This is just the beginning in some ways for me.
It's just a life of continual improvement and something to continue to aim for.
Absolutely.
Do you still give yourself the chance to sit back though and enjoy those successes?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I really do. I think so. Again, it's hard because I'm in it, but yeah, there's moments, and I really do try to be mindful of just like taking time away. And when I do have the opportunity to take that time. And so when COVID hit, it's like, okay, obviously I would rather have not happened for myself and for the world. But at the same time, I thought, okay, this opportunity to, like, I don't know, take a break, to really mentally escape and go and be able to reflect and take time and let thoughts come up to the surface. And I'm definitely into meditation, mindfulness, and it's so hard to be mindful and zen and relaxed when you're just in the thick of like 70-hour work weeks and all the noise. It's so hard to do that. And so when COVID hit, I really said to myself, like, this is a good thing because I'm not going to have a year off for the next 15. So, and it hasn't been a year off, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to have a year where it's this quiet for the next 15. So
compared to your previous 2 years where you were just hell for leather, you got job after job, you're going to Europe, you're training, you're doing all these kind of things. This 12 months was the chance to take a breath and go, all right, this has been crazy. Let's reset, refocus, and take that next step.
Yep. And I took it and I don't feel bad because there have been many times in my life where I haven't had any time to breathe. So I like breathing, you know, and I will, and I don't feel bad. I feel like it's a very healthy thing and that most people don't take advantage of.
And it's so important to do that, to take that breath.
Agreed.
I've got another quote here for you. I'm going to read it out to you. Sure. And I want you to tell me about this quote and what it means to you. And as soon as I say who it's from, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Buckminster Fuller.
Nice.
And it's a quote that says, what is my job on this planet? What is it that needs doing that I know something about that probably won't happen unless I take responsibility for it? Tell us where you found that quote, what it means to you, and how that sort of drives you.
I originally saw that quote in the book Legacy by James Kerr about the All Blacks, which I'm sure is a very familiar book in sports in Australia as well. And it just hit me between the eyes. And it's on my wall now. Like I wrote that quote down when I was in Amsterdam because I had to really put my head down in Amsterdam and like be very focused. And it was a really difficult year, to be honest with you. And I put it on my wall. And now that same quote that I wrote down, the quote, I put it on my wall, and now it's like, it goes with me everywhere. Like I have that quote with me everywhere, the exact same piece of paper. And I think I will frame it someday and put it in my basement because it's just a reminder of like, this is my job. I actually believe that everyone's calling, but not a lot of people know what that is because they haven't reflected enough. And even if they know what it is, they don't act on it. So it might turn into a hobby. They're like, oh yeah, I go and work at the homeless shelter every week, but they don't turn it into a career. And my calling is my career. That's it. And I have special experiences that we don't have enough time to go into. We didn't even talk about very specific special experiences as a woman and just as a person that led me to this. And if I ignored that and went away from it, it's like, I don't know the next person that's going to come along and do it. And I'm not talking about getting hired as a hitting coach. It's much more than that. It's my entire like embodiment of who I am as a person and the impact that I can have on the world. And if I didn't take the opportunity to do this, who else is going to do it? Like you have a responsibility to serve the world in your special area, whatever that is. That could be literally anything. I don't care what it is. Being a teacher, being a garbage collector, I don't care what it is. Do it to the best of your ability. Love it, embrace it, impact people, change the world in your area. And that's what that means to me is like we all have these special experiences, and you can either take those experiences and use them, or you can ignore them, or you can complain about them, or you can whatever. And I think it's just a very powerful reminder that it's like, it's your job to leave this world a better place, whatever that means to you. And that's what that quote means to me.
Where does Rachel Balkovec see herself in 10 years' time?
I'm a general manager.
Yep. That's the part.
Yeah.
First female GM in baseball.
Maybe not, because there's some women in the front office right now that could definitely that have interviewed. Kim Ng, she's interviewed like 3 times for general manager position. So maybe not. And the world has changed. So I hope I'm not the first female GM, but if I am, I'll take on that role. And regardless, it's not like there's going to be 20 female GMs. So I'm sure I'll be one of the first, So yeah, I hope I'm not. I hope there's one. There are qualified women right now that are up for jobs. So could happen any day now. But if that's the case, then that's the case. And I would gladly accept that role.
Rachel, you've been wonderfully generous with your time. And I know you've got plenty on your plate. And I've got a question without notice to wrap this up. I've asked this question at the end of each podcast.
Love it.
We are all baseball people, and baseball has given all of us so much in the game in various elements. So my question to you is, to wrap this up, what is your greatest moment in baseball? Now, this may be as a coach, as a fan, someone in the stands watching something on television, it can be anything. It can be great. It can be small. If you think back, what would be your greatest moment in baseball? It's a
Yeah.
toughie. It's a tough question without notice.
It's related to my career. It's just the first thing I'll just go with the first thing that popped in my mind.
For
Because
sure.
that's just, yeah, I'll just go with that because obviously it means something to me if that's the first thing that came to mind. I had been a strength coach for 5 years, I think, at the time. And in the off season, Major League Baseball asked me to speak on a diversity panel at MLB winter meetings. Again, for context, if people listening don't understand what that is, it's a giant baseball conference where everyone in baseball goes every year. It would have been in December, coming up here in a month. And a lot of like contract negotiations happen. A lot of like meetings happen, so there's tons of things that are going on. But one of the things that they usually do every year is some kind of diversity event or panel or something to promote diversity in the game. People from the public can attend. Usually it's young people trying to get into the field. And I was on a panel, a diversity panel, and one of the attendees was one of the other panelists was the general manager at the time for the Dodgers, Farhan Saidi, who's now the general manager for the San Francisco Giants. And I was on this panel, and I was the only strength coach. Everybody else was kind of front office personnel, and so the audience was also people who wanted to get in the front office. And no one was asking me any questions. So I'm sitting on the panel, and there were two other women on the panel, but again, I was the only strength coach. I was the only person on the field. Everyone else was scout or something else. And I'm just sitting here I'm like listening to everybody else talk. And finally I was like, I'm just going to jump in here, because I could have answered these questions. They're very general, just career questions. So a person in the crowd asked, this question's for Farhan, the general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. What do you like to see on a resume of a young person to hire them? And I just leaned over to Farhan. I was like, do you mind if I take this one to the general manager of the Dodgers? I can't even believe I did that. And so I'm like, so I get the mic and I'm like, look, I'm a strength coach, but I'm going to tell you, everyone on this panel just wants to see the same thing. They want to see people who are willing to do the dirt jobs, who are willing to go to the Dominican and work, who are willing to take internships, who are willing to fly to Australia. They want to see people who are willing to do the things that other people aren't willing to do. And I went on this whole tangent, and I get done and I'm like, oh, do you have anything to add to the general manager? And he's like, nope, I don't. So what happened after that is actually the biggest moment of my life, probably. So after the panel, the Farhan comes up to me and he says, hey, I want to get your phone number and we should stay in contact. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, all right, sure you do, GM of the Dodgers, okay. So I give him my number and he texts me right away. He's like, hey, let's meet up before the weekend ends. And I'm like, okay, this guy's busy. He's busy, especially at these meetings. I mean, there's just so much going on. I'm like, okay. So he's like, okay, let's meet up tonight. Let's get dinner or something after. I'd really like to talk to you. I'm like, why is this guy so persistent? So anyway, long story short, we end up meeting in the lobby for like a 10-minute talk that changed the course of my life. He was like, first question he asked me, I thought we were just meeting up to chat. Like, he's like, have you ever thought about being in the front office? And it, hit me in the face. And I was like, yes. And I blurted it out. And I was like, have I thought about that? I just said it without thinking. And he was like, I really think you have just some leadership qualities. And I just was really struck about how you were talking today. And I was like, just shocked. And then from that point forward, I just knew it was my strength and conditioning career was over. I was like, I'm moving. So he turned into somewhat of a mentor for me. I ended up interviewing for a major league position with the Giants last year. And just, from that point forward, I was like, I'm quitting my job. I'm going back to school. I'm changing career paths. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be a general manager. And that was probably one of the biggest things. It's, again, a reminder to myself of how these little conversations that I have with people, he might not have thought much of it, but it really changed the course of my career.
Amazing. Rachel, it is an incredible story. And I just hope that I've done it justice here today in telling it. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. Travel safe, and we'll see you here in Sydney very, very soon.
Great. Thank you so much. This was phenomenal. You asked some great questions. Appreciate it.
No worries. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Well, that wraps up our very special 2-part episode featuring Rachel BALKOVEC. no doubt you've been just as inspired as I was listening to her truly incredible story. Well, Rachel lands in Sydney this weekend, 2 weeks in quarantine, and then she, we're part of it, the Sydney Blue Sox campaign this year that gets underway on December 18, where the Blue Sox take on the Melbourne Aces at Blacktown International Sports Park. Please go online, sydneybluesox.com.au. Ticketing, membership, merchandise, and a whole lot more. Follow us on our socials at Sydney Blue Sox. And of course, when you're watching this podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, do all those kind of things to ensure we maintain our spot as the number one baseball podcast in Australia. Once again, thanks for listening to Blue Sox Banter. I'm Glen Hawke. Catch you next time. Blue Sox Banter is a Caris Communications production hosted by me, Glen Hawke, for the Sydney Blue Sox.